Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Noongar people, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and to this region. So you've been selected to present at a conference. Congratulations. Now what? If you aren't overjoyed at the prospect of presenting, you aren't alone. People are often more afraid of public speaking than they are of death or snakes. But sharing your work at conferences doesn't have to be a terrifying experience. After all, sharing our work at conferences is how we in public health learn from each other and improve our practice. It also provides opportunities to network and to form new relationships. This video has been prepared by the team at SiREN to support you to prepare a memorable conference presentation and will help you to reduce your nerves as well. It will step you through how to shape your presentation, how to prepare for questions from your audience, and provide you with 3 key elements that all effective presentations have. This presentation will be helpful for those who haven't presented at many conferences before, as well as for experienced presenters in need of a refresher. Before you formally begin your presentation, you may wish to include an acknowledgement of country. This is a way of demonstrating awareness and respect for Aboriginal protocols and for the Aboriginal people on whose land an occasion is being held. On this slide, there are 2 examples of different acknowledgements that you may wish to use. Before you present, make sure you've correctly identified who the traditional custodians of the area in which you are presenting are. If in doubt, contact a local Aboriginal service or program and ask them for guidance. Before you begin preparing your presentation slides, you'll need to spend some time crafting your story. Just like the abstract you prepared, the focus of your presentation needs to be about communicating a few, clear, well-supported points in a logical story form. And just like a well-developed story, your presentation should have a clear beginning, middle, and an end. To craft your story, don't jump straight into putting words onto slides, as this can lead to you including irrelevant information. First, take a moment to reflect on what the story is you'd like to tell. To do this, you'll need to consider what the most important and interesting aspects of your research or program are. Think about who your audience is and what key things they should know. Once you have this in mind, you can begin to shape the outline of your presentation. We will now look at what each of these sections should contain. To begin your presentation, you need to grab your audience's attention by starting with why. Why is the reason you are doing what you are doing. Your why describes what the point of your presentation is and why it is important. It's the main theme of your presentation. All of the elements of your presentation should link back to your why. Creating a strong beginning is the most crucial part of any presentation. To explain your why, you could use an anecdote, an interesting fact, or a metaphor, as this will capture the audience's interest in your topic. Often audiences don't understand why you are telling them something, but if you begin your presentation by telling them what your point is and why it matters, and then make sure all of the points throughout your presentation connect back to this, then they will be better able to follow your story. Now that you have your audience's attention and have explained why you are talking to them, you can now tell them who you are and what they're going to hear in your presentation. They need to know what to expect in order to stay interested and to be able to follow you. Giving them an overview of your presentation enables them to do this. In your overview, you need to provide the main idea and the key points that support the idea in the order that you will cover them. The middle of your presentation is where things can get messy. Programs and research projects have many components and can use complex methods. You will need to work hard to condense it down into a succinct and easy to follow process. The middle section is where you need to present the methods you used, your key results, and discuss their meaning or significance. You can begin this part of your presentation by discussing the methods that you used. For this, you may wish to include details of who participated in your research or program, how you collected data, did you use observations, existing data sources, or interviews? And you could also describe the processes that were followed in a chronological order. After you have described your methods, you can present your results. While you may have a large number of interesting findings, do not try to squeeze them all in, as you will only overwhelm your audience with too much information. Select a maximum of 5 of your most interesting and important findings, present them as clearly as possible, and support them with evidence such as quotes, photos, graphs, or tables. Your discussion section is where you can interpret your results. Describe the meaning of your results, such as what they add to what is already known, and what are their implications for policy or practice. Your discussion should link clearly back to your why, which is the main point of your presentation. Often when presenting, we naturally want to gloss over the bad and present our work in a positive light, but consider sharing any lessons you've learned. This may be where things went wrong, or challenges you encountered and what you did or realized when it happened. Sharing these lessons is a valuable learning tool. It helps audiences relate to your work and see how they can shape their projects differently to avoid the same pitfalls. To ensure that your presentation is easily understood by your audience, you may wish to use repetition to present complex ideas. This is not simply stating the same thing repeatedly, rather it's presenting concepts a number of times in different ways to give your audience multiple opportunities to absorb the full meaning and the significance of them. It is also useful to continue to state the links between your ideas throughout. You should arrange your ideas in a logical order. You could use numbering or sequence them chronologically, or link cause and effect or intervention and results. Also make good use of transitions. Transitions give your presentation a smooth flow. They link your ideas together and help your audience follow the direction of your talk. They can include phrases such as, "Another example of this is," or "I will now discuss the first main point." The end of your presentation will sum up your main points. It should reinforce the main ideas of the presentation and provide a clear ending. As part of your conclusion, you may wish to provide recommendations for future action. This is not the time to introduce any new ideas. It is an opportunity to reinforce your key points. A strong presentation doesn't finish abruptly or state, "That is all for today." An effective conclusion links back to the why that you established at the start of your presentation and reiterates the most important points, and may leave the audience with something to think about or create a path of action for those who want to do something with your ideas. At this point, you may also wish to acknowledge the support of individuals or organisations who are involved in your research or program. It's a good idea to provide a list of references at the end of your presentation. Citing on your slides is okay, but save the full reference for your final slide. You don't need to discuss it, but just have it there to support your arguments if necessary. After you've concluded your presentation, there will usually be a time allocated for questions. Presenting in front of your peers can be nerve-wracking, especially when it comes to question time. Question time very rarely becomes a detailed quizzing. It is a chance for you to clarify the key points of your research outside of the rigid structure of a presentation, obtain some feedback, and connect with potential collaborators. There are a few things you can do to reduce your nerves. Firstly, be prepared and be concise. You can get a wide variety of questions. Be prepared to reiterate your programs or research methods and outcomes in more detail. Try to keep your response as concise as possible. If you feel that by responding in detail you'll go over time, simply provide a brief response and invite the person asking the question to come and talk with you afterwards. Secondly, when you are asked a question that you don't have the answer to straight away, you can take a moment to gather your thoughts. You can do this by paraphrasing the question the person just asked or asking them to rephrase it. Thirdly, accept that you won't have all of the answers all of the time and that is okay. If you don't know the answer to a question, thank the person for raising it, saying that you have not explored this angle, but will definitely think about it, and if appropriate, offer to get back to them with your response. If a person is asking an invalid question or is being aggressive in their approach and you're not sure how to respond, look to the session chair. It's their role to step in and redirect the conversation to a more constructive dialogue. If this doesn't work, redirect the line of questioning yourself by thanking the person, commenting on the useful points that they made and saying they are worth considering in the future, and then ask the audience if there are any more questions. And finally, if you aren't getting any questions and have a little time left, feel free to expand on an aspect of your presentation that you feel is important. Otherwise, you can just thank your audience for attending the session and wrap it up. I'd now like to share with you 3 key tips to ensure that your presentation is successful. The first tip is prepare, prepare, prepare. 90% of how well your talk will go is determined before you even begin to speak. So how do you ensure that you're prepared? Well, firstly, ask the conference organisers who will be attending and why they will be attending. Will it be the general public, researchers, or practitioners? Will it be a formal conference, conservative or innovative? Will there be people from different language and cultural backgrounds? What kinds of things will they want to know? Understanding who you will be speaking to and why will enable you to tailor your presentation to their needs. Secondly, ask about the setup of the room and how many people you'll be talking to, as this will determine how you structure your presentation. You'll also need to know what technology is available. Will there be a microphone or are they using PowerPoint? If so, what version? Different countries may have older versions of PowerPoint that may not be compatible with yours. If they request you send your presentation through beforehand, make sure you bring it back up on a thumb drive or put it on cloud storage just in case. Also, it's always a good idea to come to the presentation early. Give yourself time to get familiar with the space and technology. You don't want the audience waiting for you while you fumble through an IT issue. And finally, practice, practice, practice. We've all heard that practice makes perfect, and while it might not guarantee perfection, it will definitely help to reduce the nerves. Rehearse a few times in front of a friend, a colleague, or a mirror so that you're familiar with the content. This will enhance the flow of your presentation, and as you can work on your transitions, and it will also help to boost your confidence. The second tip is to keep your presentation content simple and straightforward. In the words of Forbes, don't overbake your speech with caveats, asides, extras, nuances, added thoughts, one more thing, or anything else. Stick to your well-honed subject and make your attitude clear, and your audience will love you. Even more important, they'll understand you and remember what you say. Keeping it simple is about focusing on no more than 3 to 5 key findings, as we discussed before. Cramming too much information in will mean that your audience loses sight of your main message. Through saying less, you can focus on what is really important. If you are worried about not having enough detail, remember you can explain that you have more information on specific areas and invite people to meet with you to discuss them after your presentation. Keeping it simple is also about using language that's clear and to the point. Avoid using jargon, or if technical terms are necessary, explain them clearly. Keeping it simple goes for your slides too. Death by PowerPoint is real. A presentation can be supported by your slides as they provide variety and help to reinforce points. However, you are the main communicator of your message, and so your words need to be the focus, not your slides. As a general rule, your audience should be able to read and understand a visual in 5 seconds or less. So keep words to a minimum and eliminate unnecessary detail from any diagrams or graphs. Keep in mind the audience will be viewing your presentation from a distance, so font should be a minimum size of 18 and in an easy-to-read style that is consistent throughout. If you can skip the words and just go with graphics for some slides, even better. Many organisations have a PowerPoint style guide that you may be expected to adhere to, so be sure to check before spending time formatting your slides. The thing about memory is that it's not perfect, especially in a conference setting where people are given lots of information in a very short space of time. Researchers ran a test to measure how much of a presenter's message sticks in the mind of their audience. They found that immediately after a 10-minute presentation, listeners only remembered 50% of what was said. By the next day, that dropped to 25%, and a week later it was 10%. So when you're madly trying to cram more into your presentation, more graphs, tables and statistics, the chances are that people won't remember it all. So keep the information you present simple and focus on what's really important. So how do you get people to remember what you said? Well, keeping your message simple and using anecdotes and interesting facts to support your ideas are important points. But another is repetition. Churchill said, "If you have an important point to make, don't try and be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again, then hit it a third time, a tremendous whack." This is excellent advice, but use subtlety. Repeat it slightly differently each time using different framing, wording and examples so that it doesn't sound repetitious. The final tip is to engage your audience. You can do this through sharing your passion and using effective verbal and non-verbal communication. Passion is infectious, engaging and influential. It is an essential component of a good presentation. Don't be afraid to share with the audience why you are interested in the topic and why you believe it's important. Demonstrating passion is not easy to accomplish. To share your passion, you will need to connect with your audience through the effective use of your verbal and non-verbal communication. When presenting, you need to speak slower than you do usually to give people time to absorb what you're saying. You can use intonation, pauses, and changes in pace to keep listeners' attention and focus their attention on important points. It's effective to use a conversational style of speaking to make your audience feel personally involved. Each time you use the word you, your audience feels compelled to pay attention. You may want to use humour to build rapport with your audience. It can be an effective way to emphasise a key point or to increase the audience's attention to what you're saying. Using humour can also make your message more memorable, but be careful. If you use humour poorly, it can sink your presentation and harm your credibility. While you want to be engaging, it may be tempting to use humour, but few people can do it well. It's not easy, but if you feel you are someone who can effectively include humour, then go for it. You'll need to consider non-verbal communication too. It's estimated that 3/4 of meaning transferred is non-verbal, so your appearance, posture, facial expressions and eye contact are all vital to a successful presentation. Most of us are unaware of our communication style, and this is why recording ourselves presenting or watching ourselves in a mirror can reveal some of our quirks that may distract the audience. You may sway side to side while you speak or use a lot of filler words such as ums and ahs. Without recording yourself and watching it back or presenting in front of an honest colleague or friend, you may never know that you have these habits. Thorough planning and preparation will ensure a good presentation. Some people will always find it more difficult than others to speak confidently in public. However, with practice and perseverance, we can all deliver an effective presentation. Remember to structure your presentation like a story, with a clear beginning, middle, and an end. And the 3 key elements of a successful presentation are: be prepared, keep it simple, and be engaging. We hope you now have a good understanding of how to prepare for your next conference presentation. If you'd like to learn more about presenting, we suggest taking a look at the following sources. Don't forget that SiREN provides strategic planning, evaluation and research support and advice to people working to address sexual health and bloodborne virus challenges in Western Australia. So if you need help with preparing to share your work at conferences or any other planning, evaluation or research support, please get in touch via email.